Experience. Sometimes we get so busy trying to make things happen that we forget God doesn't need our pressure. He needs our patience. You can pray all day, plan all night, experience, and push with all your strength. But if it's not God's appointed time, it will not move. See, the problem isn't that God said no. Sometimes experience. He's just saying, not yet. He's working behind the scenes, arranging things you can't see, aligning people you haven't met, experience, and preparing blessings you're not ready to carry yet. When you keep pushing what God hasn't released, you'll only wear yourself out and end up frustrated. Experience. The door you're trying to open in your strength might be the very door God is keeping shut to protect you. Let me tell you, delay is not denial. When God promises something, experience. Time doesn't cancel. Time prepares you for it. God's timing isn't about convenience. It's about completion. Experience. He waits until everything inside you is mature enough to handle what you've been asking for. So instead of pushing, start trusting. Instead of forcing, start resting. Experience. You don't have to chase what's already written with your name on it. The same God who ordered your steps also ordained your seasons. And when the appointed time comes, experience. No devil, no delay. No distraction can stop what God has decreed for your life. Your job is not to make it happen. Your job is to stay faithful while it's happening. Experience. Keep praying, keep walking, keep believing. The harvest doesn't come by pushing the seed. It comes by waiting on the season. Because when it's God's time, experience, it won't feel forced. It will flow. When God tells you to stop pushing, He's really inviting you to start trusting. Experience. Many of us have grown up with the mindset that if we just push harder, try more, and work longer, everything will fall into place. But the kingdom doesn't work like that. Experience. God's blessings are not achieved through pressure. They are received through position. And that position is one of faith, surrender, and trust. See, experience. When you're walking with God, you don't have to chase what's already been appointed to your life. God doesn't need you to twist His arm or prove your worth. Experience. He already knows the plans He has for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. The moment you were created, experience, your path was already written. But what many of us do is try to skip chapters, force open doors, and push through walls that God never told us to touch. When you start striving in your own strength, you take the pen out of God's hand and start writing your own story. You begin to live in stress instead of rest. Experience, frustration instead of faith. And every time we do that, God lets us see that our pushing can never produce what His timing can release. Experience. We exhaust ourselves trying to make something happen before its season. But even the most beautiful fruit rots if it's picked too early. Think about Abraham. Experience. God promised him a son, not just any son, but one through whom nations would be born. Yet Abraham got tired of waiting. He pushed the process. He decided to help God out. Experience. And what happened? He ended up creating a situation that brought conflict and pain for generations. That's what happens when you try to produce a promise with human power. Experience. You might get something, but it won't be what God intended. Trusting God means releasing control. It means saying, Lord, I don't understand the delay. Experience. But I still believe in your design. Because faith isn't proven when everything happens quickly. Faith is proven when nothing seems to move, and you still choose to stand. Experience. You stop measuring your life by how fast doors open and start measuring it by how deeply you trust the one who holds the key. When you truly trust God, experience. You don't panic when something doesn't work out. You don't beg for what left. You don't chase what's running away. Because you know if it's meant for you, experience, it can't miss you. The job that slipped away, the person who walked out, the opportunity that fell through, none of it caught God by surprise. Experience. He's not scrambling to fix what you think is broken. He's orchestrating something better that fits your destiny, not your desire. But to experience that experience, you have to slow down and stop striving. You can't hear God's whisper if you're always running. Some of us are so busy trying to make life happen that we miss the gentle nudge of His Spirit saying, wait, experience, I'm working. Every time you try to push open a door that's not moving, you're wasting the energy you could use praising God while you wait. Experience. Sometimes God will let things stand still to teach you that your power is limited and His is limitless. Experience. He'll let you get to the end of your strength so you can finally lean on His. When you stop striving, you start hearing. When you stop forcing, you start flowing. Experience. When you stop pushing, you start positioning yourself for divine timing. Faith doesn't mean sitting back in laziness. It means moving in alignment. Experience. You still do your part. You still pray, prepare, and pursue, but you let God decide the pace and path. You understand that your obedience opens doors your effort never could. Experience. The waiting room is where God shapes you for what's waiting for you. And the sooner you trust him fully, the sooner he can release what's already yours. So take a breath. Experience. Stop panicking over what hasn't happened yet. You're not late. You're being prepared. You don't have to manipulate what's already written in your favor. Experience. When it's time, God will move you from waiting to walking, from promise to possession, from prayer to manifestation. Stop striving and start trusting. Period. Because the moment you truly rest in God's timing, experience, you'll realize that what's meant for you doesn't need to be pushed. It just needs to be trusted into place. Delay is one of the hardest seasons to endure. Experience, especially when your heart is set on receiving a promise, a breakthrough, or an opportunity. We live in a culture that values instant results, immediate gratification, experience, and quick fixes. But the kingdom of God operates on a completely different timeline. Delay is not a punishment, and it is not a sign of God's rejection. In fact, experience, delay is often divine preparation, a period during which God is shaping, strengthening, and aligning you for what he has already promised. When you face delay, experience, it's easy to get frustrated. You may start questioning your worth, your ability, or even God's faithfulness. Experience, why is this taking so long? Have I done something wrong? Is this ever going to happen? These are natural questions, experience, but they reveal a mindset that doesn't fully trust God's perfect timing. The truth is that what God has for you will come to pass in his appointed time, experience, and he uses the waiting period to prepare you to receive it fully and responsibly. Think about a farmer who plants a seed. Experience. He doesn't dig it up every day to see if it has sprouted. He waters it, tends to the soil, and waits. The seed doesn't appear overnight, experience, but that doesn't mean it isn't growing. Beneath the surface, unseen and silent, life is being built. Delay in your life works the same way. God is at work even when you cannot see it. He is cultivating character, refining faith, and building resilience so that when your blessing comes, experience, you can handle it without being overwhelmed or misusing it. Many people miss God's blessings because they are not ready for them. They rush, force, and manipulate circumstances, experience, and instead of entering into what God intended, they settle for something less. Delay is God's way of protecting you from premature promotion, from unprepared positions, experience, and from relationships or opportunities that might harm you if received too soon. He is not withholding, he is guarding, he is not punishing, he is preparing. Experience, understanding this truth can transform your perspective. Instead of seeing delay as a setback, you begin to see it as a setup for something greater. During periods of delay, experience, God also works to refine your faith. Waiting teaches patience, dependence, and trust. You learn that life doesn't move according to your timetable, but according to God's. Experience, you discover that your value is not determined by what you have or haven't received, but by who you are in Christ. You learn to rejoice in small victories. Experience, to cultivate gratitude and to persevere in prayer. Delay shapes your heart, making it receptive to the fullness of God's provision when the time comes. Experience, the Bible is full of examples of delay that turned in divine preparation. Joseph waited years in a prison before being elevated to a position of power in Egypt. Experience, David spent years as a shepherd and a fugitive before becoming king. Esther waited quietly, faithfully, and strategically until the moment came for her to speak for her people. Experience, each of these stories illustrates that delay is not denial. It is the essential stage where God molds you into the person you need to be to fulfill your destiny. Experience, delay also provides an opportunity for God to align circumstances in your favor. During the waiting period, he is arranging doors, positioning people, experience, and orchestrating events so that when the time comes, everything falls into place. Experience. What may look like frustration or stagnation is actually God's masterful orchestration behind the scenes. No detail is too small for him, and no timing is accidental. Experience. Every pause, every setback, and every moment of waiting is intentional. Finally, delay teaches endurance. Life is full of seasons. Experience. And God's plan often requires you to walk through preparation before you reach manifestation. Endurance develops strength, and strength builds maturity. Experience. When you emerge from a season of delay, you are not only receiving the promise, but you are entering it with wisdom, perspective, and the ability to steward it well. Experience. Delay transforms impatience into perseverance, weakness into resilience, and frustration into faith. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting, do not despair. Experience. Do not take matters into your own hands. Instead, embrace the delay as divine preparation. Trust that God is working, even when you cannot see the outcome. Experience. Strengthen your character, cultivate your faith, and position yourself in obedience and readiness. The things you desire are on their way, but they will arrive fully, perfectly. experience, and in a way that honors God and fulfills your destiny. Delay is not denial. It is God's preparation for your ultimate blessing. In the end, experience, the person who understands that delay is divine preparation, will wait with confidence, move with wisdom, and receive with gratitude. Experience. You will no longer measure life by how quickly doors open, but by how deeply God is shaping you to walk through them when the time comes. What you are waiting for is already yours in God's mind and plan. You just need to be ready to receive it. Forcing open doors, rushing opportunities, experience, and trying to manipulate circumstances are behaviors that come from impatience and misunderstanding of God's timing. Many people believe that if they push hard enough, work long enough, or strategize cleverly enough, they can create the success, relationships, or blessings they desire. But when it comes to what God has planned, experience, forcing things ahead of his timing only leads to frustration, misalignment, and often failure. God's plans are perfect, and they are always orchestrated according to his wisdom. Experience, not human impulse. When you try to open doors that God hasn't opened yet, you risk stepping into situations you're not prepared for. Life's challenges, opportunities, experience, and relationships require the right timing and the right preparation. If you push too soon, experience, you may find yourself in positions that test your faith in ways you're not ready to endure. You may meet people who are not meant to be in your life yet. Experience, take on responsibilities that exceed your capacity, or experience blessings you cannot steward well. God knows your limits, your season, experience, and the right moment for you to step into what he has promised. When you force things, you are essentially saying that you know better than God. Experience, and that is a path that always leads to disappointment. For example, think about Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a son, experience, but they grew impatient and took matters into their own hands. They helped God by having a child through Hagar, the servant. Experience, while their actions seemed to solve the immediate problem, it created complications that affected generations. The lesson is clear: when you push ahead of God's timing, experience, the outcome may happen, but it will come with struggles and consequences that could have been avoided if you had waited in faith. Experience. Forcing things also causes unnecessary stress and anxiety. When you are constantly trying to make what isn't ready happen, you drain yourself emotionally, spiritually, experience, and mentally. You become reactive instead of responsive, moving in tension instead of peace. God's plans are meant to bring fulfillment, not frustration. By pushing experience, you not only risk failure, but you also rob yourself of the joy that comes from walking in alignment with him. Experience. True peace comes from trusting that the right door will open at the right time and that God's timing is always perfect. Experience. Patience and obedience are the antidotes to forcing things. When you align your actions with God's guidance and wait for his confirmation, experience, you enter into a flow that makes success and blessing more sustainable. Think about Joseph in Egypt. He didn't force his way into a position of power. Experience. He endured years of slavery and imprisonment, remaining faithful and obedient throughout the delay. When the time came, he was not only ready for the responsibility, experience, but he was positioned in such a way that he could save nations. If he had pushed to escape or maneuver his circumstances prematurely, he might have sabotaged God's plan. Experience. Forcing things also undermines faith. Faith is not about making things happen. Faith is about trusting that God is making things happen. When you constantly push, you rely on your own strength instead of God's. But when you wait and obey, you rely on him, and that builds trust, character, and spiritual maturity. Experience. You develop the wisdom to recognize when an opportunity is genuinely God-given versus when it is a result of your impatience or manipulation. Furthermore, experience. Forcing doors can damage relationships and reputations. Opportunities often involve other people, and rushing them can cause tension, misunderstanding, or conflict. Experience. God's timing ensures that the right people are in the right places when you are ready to move forward. When you bypass his timing, you risk alienating allies, mentors, experience, and partners who are crucial to your journey. Understanding this principle transforms the way you approach life. You begin to see that restraint is not weakness, but strength. Experience. That patience is not passivity, but active trust. And that waiting is not wasted time, but preparation for what is coming. When you stop forcing doors, experience, you stop fighting against the very rhythm of God's plan. You start living in a way that is peaceful, confident, and aligned with his will. Experience. God's timing is not a suggestion. It is perfect orchestration. The doors that are meant for you will open at the right time without strain, experience, and in a way that ensures you can walk through them successfully. When you force doors, you risk stepping into chaos. When you wait on God, you step into order, blessing, experience, a purpose. So stop trying to force what God has not yet released. Stop manipulating situations and trying to create outcomes with your own hands. Experience. Trust that God knows what is best. He knows when it's ready, and He will open the door in the exact moment it is meant to be opened. Experience. Let go of the urge to control and start embracing the peace that comes from walking in alignment with God's perfect timing. The right doors will not require force. Experience. They will open naturally, bringing fulfillment, favor, and divine provision exactly when they are supposed to. God's timing is perfect. That is not just a comforting phrase. Experience, it is a profound truth that governs every aspect of life. So often we look at our circumstances, our struggles, experience, and our unmet desires and conclude that God is either late or indifferent. But God is never late. He is never early. He is always exactly on time. Experience. Understanding this truth can transform the way you live, pray, and pursue the promises He has placed in your life. Perfect timing means that God coordinates every detail in a way that human hands and human understanding cannot. He aligns situations, people, opportunities, experience, and resources so that when the time comes, everything works together for your good. There is no coincidence in the timing of God. He is meticulous, sovereign, and deliberate. Experience. Nothing is too small for Him to arrange, and nothing is too big for Him to control. While we see scattered events, God sees a complete picture. Experience. And every moment of waiting is part of the masterpiece He is painting in your life. Experience. One of the reasons God's timing is perfect is because He knows what is needed for the fulfillment of His plans. He knows your heart, your strengths, your weaknesses, experience, and the circumstances that will help you grow into the person capable of handling what He is about to release. Just like a teacher waits until a student is ready for a lesson. Experience. God waits until you are ready for a blessing, a position, a relationship, or a responsibility. Premature promotion without preparation can lead to failure, disappointment, experience, or misuse. But God's timing ensures that when it comes, you are equipped to handle it with wisdom, grace, and effectiveness. Consider the example of Esther. Experience. The timing of her rise to influence was not by chance. She waited, obeyed, and positioned herself faithfully. Her moment came precisely when her people needed her voice, experience, and the situation required her courage. If she had acted too soon, she may have jeopardized everything. When God's timing is in play, your steps fall into alignment with purpose, experience, and your actions have maximum impact. Timing is not just about when something happens, it's about how it happens, ensuring that the outcome aligns perfectly with God's plan. Experience. Waiting on God's timing also strengthens faith. If everything happened immediately without patience or perseverance, our faith would remain shallow. Delay develops trust, experience, reliance, and endurance. It teaches us to rest in God rather than in our own strategies. When you walk with the awareness that God's timing is perfect, experience, you approach life differently. You stop trying to manipulate circumstances, stop chasing people or opportunities, and start moving in obedience and preparation. Experience. You develop confidence that what is meant for you cannot be stolen or missed because it is held in the hands of one who is never late. Experience. Another aspect of God's perfect timing is His ability to prevent harm. Sometimes what we think we want would actually be detrimental if received too soon. Experience. He protects us from premature choices, destructive relationships, or opportunities that would overwhelm or mislead us. Delays and setbacks are not obstacles, they are safeguards. Experience. When we trust in His timing, we recognize that waiting is not a denial of our desires, but a protection of our destiny. Perfect timing also brings glory to God. Experience. When events unfold according to His schedule, it becomes evident that the outcome was beyond human orchestration. People see the divine hand at work, and God receives the glory. Experience. If things happen too soon or too late by human standards, the testimony may be diminished or complicated. God's timing ensures that every blessing, breakthrough, experience, an answer to prayer occurs with precision so that His power and faithfulness are unmistakable. Trusting God's timing requires patience, humility, experience, and a willingness to surrender control. It means letting go of the urge to fix everything immediately and believing that the delays, pauses, and waiting periods are purposeful. Experience. It means embracing faith that what is meant for you will come at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way, and for exactly the right purpose. Experience. God's timing is never rushed, never forgotten, and never flawed. When you live with this understanding, life becomes less stressful and more aligned with His plan. Experience. You move with assurance rather than anxiety, respond with wisdom rather than panic, and celebrate the small victories along the way. You no longer measure life by your calendar or your expectations. You measure it by the faithfulness and precision of God. Experience. God's timing is perfect because it is rooted in His omniscience, His sovereignty, and His love. Every delay, every waiting period, every pause is intentional. It prepares you, experience, protects you, and positions you. It ensures that when your blessing arrives, it arrives in fullness, bringing joy, peace, and impact. Trust in God's timing, experience. And you will find that the right things happen not too early, not too late, but exactly when they are meant to happen. Experience. Fulfilling his purpose in your life in a way that exceeds what you could have imagined. Faith requires stillness. It's easy to confuse faith with action, movement, experience, and constant striving. Many people believe that showing faith means always doing something, always planning, always pushing, always negotiating life in their own strength. Experience. But true faith is not proven by business, it is proven by stillness, by trusting God when nothing seems to be happening. Experience, and by believing in his promises even when the circumstances look impossible. Stillness is not passivity, it is a posture of confidence, patience, and surrender before God. Experience. When you practice stillness, you allow God to work in ways that human effort cannot achieve. Often our pushing and striving only complicate God's plan. Experience, we try to manipulate outcomes, control timing, or force situations to move faster than they should. But God's work is never hurried, it is deliberate, precise, and perfect. By stepping into stillness, we stop resisting his process and start cooperating with it. We create space for his spirit to move, for his timing to unfold, experience, and for his blessings to arrive without strain. Stillness also strengthens our faith. When we stop trying to do everything ourselves, we are forced to rely on God. Reliance is the foundation of trust. Waiting silently, praying patiently, and trusting without immediate results deepens our spiritual roots. The longer we remain still in faith, experience, the stronger our confidence becomes that God is in control. It is in these quiet, unhurried moments that God often speaks most clearly, guiding us toward the right decisions. Experience, people, and paths. Consider the story of David hiding in the wilderness before becoming king. He could have tried to seize power, manipulate circumstances, experience, or take the throne by force. But instead, he remained patient, trusted God, and allowed the timing of his rise to be orchestrated by the Lord. In the wilderness, in the stillness, experience, David learned obedience, patience, and dependence on God. By the time he became king, he was not only ready, but also equipped with the character and wisdom required to lead. Experience. This is how stillness prepares us. It develops our heart, builds endurance, and strengthens our trust in God's promises. Experience. Stillness also allows us to avoid mistakes that come from impatience. When we rush, we often act on emotion rather than wisdom. We pursue what looks good in the moment but is not aligned with God's plan. We may enter into relationships, jobs, or ventures too early and experience failure or heartbreak as a result. Waiting in stillness allows discernment to take root. You can evaluate your circumstances, hear God's direction, and move forward in a way that is strategic and God-centered rather than impulsive and self-reliant. Faith in stillness is not about inaction. Experience. It is about active waiting. This means preparing your heart, owning your skills, praying diligently, and aligning your life with God's will. Experience, all while resisting the urge to force outcomes. It means recognizing that your role is not to manufacture success, but to position yourself faithfully for what God has promised. Experience, stillness is a discipline. It is a daily choice to believe that God is moving, even when you cannot see it. Stillness also brings peace. When we stop pushing, we stop worrying. We no longer carry the burden of forcing our future to happen. Instead, we rest in the confidence that God is sovereign, his plan is perfect, and his timing is flawless. Experience. This peace is a sign of faith in action. It is faith expressed not through frenetic effort, but through calm trust. It protects your heart from anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. Moreover, stillness allows God's power to work unhindered. When we constantly interfere, we may block divine intervention. By being still, experience, we create an environment where miracles, provision, and opportunities can flow naturally. God is not impressed by our struggle to make things happen. Experience. He is honored by our trust and obedience. Faith requires stillness because it is in stillness that we truly recognize God's sovereignty. It teaches patience, builds trust. Experience prevents mistakes and opens the door for God's power to move. When you stop forcing striving or pushing, you find that God's promises do not require your effort. They require your trust. And when you wait in faith, God shows up exactly as he promised in his perfect time, experience, and in his perfect way. Stillness is the secret to walking in faith with confidence. It is not resignation. It is readiness. It is not weakness. It is strength under control. Experience. It is the space where your heart aligns with God's will and where your life is prepared for the fullness of his blessings. Experience. The person who learns stillness in faith will discover that the timing, provision, and opportunities of God come without strain, without conflict. experience, and with perfect peace. When it's God's time, it will flow naturally, without force, strain, or struggle. Experience. This is a principle that is often overlooked in a world that glorifies hustle, instant results, and relentless pursuit. Many people believe that blessings, opportunities, experience, or answers to prayer require constant pushing and manipulation. But what is meant for you, what God has ordained for your life, does not require you to twist arms, bend rules, experience, or chase it desperately. The right time, the perfect circumstances, and the appointed blessing will arrive in a way that aligns seamlessly with God's will and your preparedness. Experience. Flowing in God's timing is fundamentally different from chasing after life in your own strength. When you push for what hasn't been released, you often create stress, experience, frustration, and unnecessary complications. You might get something, but it will rarely be what God intended. What flows in God's timing, however, comes in fullness, peace, experience, and alignment. It is effortless in the sense that it does not require manipulation or force. It is the manifestation of divine orchestration. Experience. The key is learning to recognize and wait for that flow rather than creating your own. Experience. This natural flow occurs because God has a perfect schedule that takes into account not only your desires, but your readiness. He knows the season, the people, experience, and the resources that need to converge for your blessing to be complete. Just as a river follows the path carved by God, opportunities, relationships, experience, and breakthroughs will reach you at the right moment when all elements are perfectly aligned. Forcing the river to flow faster only leads to turbulence, confusion, experience, and sometimes missed opportunities. But when you wait, trusting the current of God's timing, everything falls into place with precision and ease. Patience in waiting is critical. Experience. The world teaches us to demand, rush, and grab, but the kingdom teaches us to wait with expectation. Flowing with God's timing requires surrender. Experience. Acknowledging that His plans are higher and His understanding is greater than ours. It requires humility to say, Lord, I don't see the full picture. Experience. But I trust your wisdom and your schedule. When you do this, your life begins to move in sync with God's design, and the results arrive without struggle or confusion. Experience. Many biblical examples demonstrate this principle. Joseph endured years of slavery and imprisonment, yet when the time came, he did not have to push or manipulate. The path opened naturally. Daniel remained faithful in exile, and when God's appointed moment arrived, experience. He was elevated to influence and authority without striving against circumstances. Esther waited for the right moment to speak, and when the time came, experience. Her words flowed with perfect impact. In each case, the blessings and responsibilities came not because of force, experience, but because the individuals had positioned themselves in obedience and waited for God's appointed time. Experience. Flowing in God's timing also ensures that you are able to steward what is given to you effectively. When something comes too early or through forced effort, experience. You may lack the maturity, understanding, or resources to handle it properly. God's timing guarantees that when blessings, opportunities, or breakthroughs arrive, experience, you are prepared to receive them fully. This preparation extends to your heart, your mind, your relationships, and your skills. Experience. The fullness of the blessing is matched with the fullness of readiness. The flow of God's timing is also marked by peace. Experience. You will recognize it because it doesn't come with confusion, frustration, or desperation. The path opens, the doors align, and the opportunities feel right. Experience. You will feel a sense of ease and confirmation that this is exactly what you are meant to receive. When things flow in God's timing, there is harmony, clarity, experience, and assurance that the outcome is divinely orchestrated. Finally, understanding this principle liberates you from the burden of controlling outcomes. You no longer have to fight, experience, manipulate, or chase what is meant for you. You simply remain faithful, obedient, and prepared. Experience. And the flow of God's timing brings the manifestation of His promises into your life. This is the ultimate lesson. God's time cannot be rushed, delayed, experience, or derailed by human effort. What is yours will arrive when it is meant to, and it will come in such a way that your life, purpose, and impact are maximized. Experience. So stop struggling to make things happen. Stop forcing doors that are not yet open. Instead, align yourself with God's timing, trust His plan, and wait in faith. Experience. When it is God's appointed time, it will not require pushing, it will not require strain, and it will not require manipulation. It will flow naturally, perfectly, experience, and powerfully. And when it does, you will walk into it fully equipped, fully blessed, and fully confident that what has arrived is exactly what was meant for you in the way it was meant to come.